I'm old enough where there was time when TV signed off.
Yeah.
Like, you turn on TV, you're like, damn.
Yeah.
TV's over.
TV's over
TV's over.
for
You
the
imagine?
night.
I'm dead.
Welcome back to the fam, y'all. You know, the pre-show discussion. What is this, episode 8? I think it's episode 8? Maybe episode 9.
Nine.
Welcome back to episode 9 of the fam.
We're doing the things.
Today we're going to be getting into collaborative barriers, but my name is Parker Johnson. To my left,
I'm Dr. Lisa. Hi, everyone.
to my right,
Hello, it's Pam. Nice to see you again.
it's Pam.
It's Pam.
No big deal. Collaborative barriers, because we all, in our own capacity, do community organizing. We've run different events. We've had to figure out, and still are figuring out, like the granting stream and where to find funds to do certain things. We also discuss how difficult it can be to even collaborate with folks. And sometimes I think in our own communities, it can be hard to collaborate. And especially because where we are, all right. I'm monologuing, but you go, I mean, please.
We'll talk about it.
All right, okay. Yeah. Anyways, it can be difficult because I think in our space, there's so few of us, and so sometimes there's like a pot, and you got to try and figure it out, and that can be difficult. And so, yeah, just let's talk about some collaborative barriers that we are experiencing as community organizers and event planners. I know you have something that you're cooking up, maybe a little.
Yeah, it's still brewing.
Yeah.
So my friend and I, Willow Prince, were thinking of doing an event called Moana Yan. So Moana in my language, in Lingala, my parents come from the Democratic Republic of Congo, means child. And then Yan is earth in Willow's language. And so we were just talking about, like we had Dairy Queen, and we're like, why is it that every time we kick it, it's on some sad stuff? Like we are just like on some, it's like heavily trauma bond kind of energy. I'm like, I'm just trying to breathe joy in my life.
Yes.
And I think especially with my injury, I've been I've been kind of out of the organizing game for a little bit. And I've just been wanting to have something that's just like joyful. And about a month ago now, I was at some Two-Spirit slam poetry event by Vida. And
It was downtown, right?
it was it was actually Fernwood Community Center.
Oh, shout out to Fernwood.
Yeah, and basically they were fundraising for Two-Spirit Regalia, and it was just such a beautiful event. It was so beautiful, and it was just like, and I was just thinking, because I remember when I first moved to Victoria, I used to watch a lot of like slam poetry on Def Jam Slam Poetry. I don't know if y'all about it.
Oh, yeah.
In that bag.
Oh, yeah.
It was created in my time.
That's you.
It just trying to say.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm glad you all found it.
You're right. Thank you. We got it.
I'll take it from you, youngest.
Exactly. So basically what we were thinking of doing is having, Willow explains it as migratory sound. And it's going to be poetry along with art, exposure, showcase, and then like ending the night with like vibey music. And what we want this to be is that all the proceeds goes towards kind of like a youth scholarship.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was thinking, I was once sponsored by
Situation.
I was sponsored before, and a big thing for me was how for me, like growing up, like I either fundraised my way through, or I had someone literally like pay for me to get to where I am today. And in efforts of trying to make things align with the things that that are important to me, is like creating those barriers, taking away those barriers, so that youth can like, if you want to get into playing on that, the grind basketball, then you can go do that, and we got you covered. And thinking a bit more creatively of like how to do that. But now we're at a space where like grants, why is it so difficult to
Why is it so difficult?
Why is it so hard?
Yeah.
When apparently there's a ton of money for youth programs, for Black youth in particular as well. I think that's a perfect example of systemic, in my opinion, systemic racism, where they're actually trying to help disrupt and dismantle the system, but the way their policies are set up, it's actually perpetuating it. And a part of that is not understanding our communities and how they roll. And so they're trying to take a system that was designed a certain way and overlay that onto the communities that the system was never designed for. And so things like, you have to be, for example, a nonprofit or a charitable society. That
I'm one person, so now
right?
I got to run the administration, the HR,
Right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
We're talking about, you're telling me today, like, oh, look into sole proprietorship. I'm Googling, what is, like, what does that mean?
Can you send
Yeah.
that to me?
Can you send that,
Yeah.
can you text it so I
Yeah.
have that, like,
Yeah.
And it's not realistic with the size of many of our communities that one organization would be able to do all
of
the
the
things.
things that are there.
Yeah.
So inherent, not only in who we are as a people, but inherent in what you're asking us to do requires us to be able to collaborate
Yes.
with each other. But it's not set up that way. And instead, it's like you said, that one pot.
Yep.
And now we have a few societies now going after each other.
Crabs in a bucket.
Instead of doing something where we're all working together with groups, like my business is not a nonprofit, but all the stuff that we do, it's who is doing what in community.
Yes.
Like you
Yeah.
need to get to know who knows what they're doing. Because we also know that there's some people who could just say that they're a nonprofit. I mean, they are, but they're one person, come up with a big fancy name.
Yeah.
And people think that, oh, they must have connection to so many people in community, and they don't know anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody's seen them for 10, 15
Yeah.
years, right? Sorry.
it's getting
I'm just
tea with Dr.
saying.
G.
Tea with Dr. G is
like
a
that.
segment.
Tea with Dr. G.
Yo, I might need that on a t-shirt, yo. But it's real. It's tough. And it's, when you talk about, the system set up for, it doesn't feel like it's for you. Like you can really feel it, even in when you're speaking to somebody who does this and they're trying to school you on what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it's just not accessible. The language is not
Yeah.
accessible. You don't even know where to look.
Excellent
Don't even
point.
know where to look?
No,
You don't even know where to look.
Not at all.
It's-
It's overwhelming.
It
is.
is very overwhelming. There's a university in town with one of the worst websites I've ever experienced in my life. And that's what it can feel like
Yeah.
in terms of trying to navigate
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
to look.
Yeah.
And then if you try to call somebody, who you're going to talk to.
Yeah.
Who you're gonna talk to.
And then you have to have all these other pieces, like I said, because from their perspective, for them, having a one-stop shop makes their life easy. But again, if you understand community, we know people who could take A and people could take B and people could take C and make that something. And then the irony, of course, is then many of us get frustrated, don't do anything, and then the money sits there, and then they go, look, we have all this money.
And they won't take it.
Nobody's
Yeah.
using it, and they won't
Nobody's-
take
Yeah,
it.
but what's also so what I is kind of bothering me in this conversation also is that then that only leaves, like for us, like what got me kind of into this was like I had to take it to the streets because I didn't know where else to take it.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't know, I was at home, I didn't know there was no community center in place. I didn't know where I could find the next black
Yeah.
person. The person that connected me together was someone I met at Dairy Queen also, right? And then from
Seems like
there,
the spot.
That's a plug.
Dairy Queen's hey, Dairy Queen, you watch
Oh,
it.
no.
That's how you.
No.
But you know what I mean? It's just that like there was no place that I knew to go to, but I was like grieving. This was during the time of George Floyd, and I'm like, where do I go? To the streets. And then all of a sudden, over 10,000 people pull up, and
That's
it's
right.
like, why is it that when it comes to coming together, there's ample amount of space when we're grieving, but not enough when we're trying to build joy?
Speak that's facts.
Yeah.
That's facts. And
Yeah.
not only that, it's what kind of grieving is it? Because all those people show up, and then where do they go?
Right?
Right? Because there's no infrastructure to support once you're there. So people are there showing support, but then
then
where do
what?
you go?
Where do you
Then
go?
what?
Then what?
Exactly. And then what? So I don't know if part of it is we need to somehow figure out how to have conversations with people who are doing this stuff and just saying you're doing this wrong. This is, or on the flip side, so this is internal. We have certain organizations that have gotten so good at being able to just bash it out that they can just kind of do that. It's still, though, not as great as it could be with us collaboratively, right?
Yeah. Sorry, did you
No,
have?
go ahead.
I'm just thinking about other organizations that I've either collaborated with or creators that I've collaborated with, and I'm very grateful to have people who are really well versed in this space. I'm always learning. It really is daunting to be able to pull an event together, going through that kind of bureaucratic stream. It's much easier to do, like table talk, like I'm gonna pull up, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna wing it, I'm gonna pay for food out of pocket and maybe get some back. I don't even know.
And you're very successful at it.
We're not gonna do that, but
it's true though.
I appreciate that, but I do think that having those people around, put your hand up. If you are skilled in this, please put your hand up. Because there are people and youth who have amazing ideas. I think about the youth who had the screening of Wakanda
Black
Forever.
Panther,
And that was just a youth with an idea, and people rallied around her. It was beautiful.
It's just, we just finished Black Rod.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But that came together because of a collaboration, right? With, say, for example, my org with, and I know somebody amazing who has a nonprofit society. And so together, putting together our skill set to be able to go after things like that. It, once again, feels like we have to be the ones in our community to put together these pieces to make it easier for us in order then to have things happen and then basically educate, which shouldn't be our responsibility. But it feels like that's what kind of has to happen, which is distressing in a way.
I could really feel it here when it feels like people do not know how to connect to our communities. So they guess. And it's usually by throwing money at an issue or a group of people, and they say, figure it out. When really, we could also use some support in learning how to
do it.
How to do it.
How to do it.
How to do it.
Like, what is the fear? What are you afraid of? Like, you know what I'm saying?
And sometimes some of these things come out and they have a how to, but it's like in the middle of the day. Like it's not. What are you doing this
for?
Again, did you call us and ask us what's a good time?
What's a good idea?
Because I'm telling you, Thursday morning at like 10 a.m. is not it. And so again, it's just feels more like checking a box as opposed to really getting to know who we are as a community. Because I'll give you a perfect example. Actually, this just happened today. I happen to know a racialized attorney who is willing for free to give education and information around family law here, which is very complicated, especially many people in our community are from different parts of the country, et cetera. So this person actually called a couple of very well-known agencies that have a lot of connections to various communities and told them that this is something that she would like to provide for free. And this person is also trilingual, by the way. Still hasn't heard back from these agencies, right? And just to make clear, it's not our agencies, right? Like the kind of mainstream space. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to make some phone calls in the next couple of days because that's ridiculous.
But even at that, it's like you have to provide first invisible labor in order for them to be connected. Like, what's that about? Is that in order for our community, if we're trying to invest in our community, we'll have to give this for free so that like we can lure, you know what I mean? It's like, what's that about?
That's real talk.
So even on that front, it's kind of like it's being pushed. I think I get my poli-sci bag here, but from the private to the public sphere is that these sectors of like, these bureaucratic sectors that are so exclusive that no one's really there's a certain language that's here pushes us to these public spheres where like we have to take it to the streets, we have to give things for free, we just have to be available. But then like, what are we eating?
So what does that sound like? Now, if we go deep back,
take us back then.
That is looking a lot like that idea of what happened to us as a collective of those of us who have an enslavement background, where you bring people over, you kidnap them, you bring them over, and then you just have them give you all this stuff for free. And if we're in a society now where we're talking about decolonizing and trying to really think about what we're doing, how then are we okay with always demanding, well, you need to bring this to us for free. You need to do this for free, or not compensating you properly for those kind of things. This is why knowing your history is important. Do people think that's what they're doing? No, probably no. It's not like we're going to sit there and repeat this, but you have learned those lessons, and not only in terms of race, but in terms of gender, right? We expect that from people who identify as female. Oh, you're just going to do that? That's good of you, you know? And we see that throughout our society, right? So we're repeating patterns that way. And the trick for us is knowing that and balancing trying to break it, because we know that's not okay for us. And at the same time feeling like, well, if we don't do it, then it won't get done. And they'll be happy that it doesn't get done. So where does that put us?
And then we get to that place of, well, if we're filling a gap, then we're going above and beyond. Then we get to
And
that
then we
space
get
of burnout.
exhaustion, and
there
then
we
burnout,
go.
and then
episode about
There we go.
rest.
Yep.
Cycle continues.
Yep.
So
Yep.
circling back to the youth, when you had,
Yep.
you know, with the screening that happened,
Yep.
I was so hyped because that was just an idea. And just to see people rally around this youth, why is it so difficult for our age groups to rally around each other the same way?
That's a very good, I'd love to know that.
Hey.
I don't have the answer. I'm just
No,
asking
I
the
think
ethers.
I think it's an excellent question.
We're all in survival mode.
Yeah.
And then the creativity is there in the youth. It's like, I want to have a screening. I want to invite my friends. I want to invite my community. No problem. We got you. Same person, aged 28, 20, whatever, 30.
Doing the same thing.
Different.
Why is that? I'm curious about, why do you all think that is?
I think interpersonal relationships are complex. I think also, as we age, I think that life can degrade us in different ways.
Sure.
And I think specifically when you're doing community organizing, it can put you in a bit of a survival mode. So maybe you're not able to be as vulnerable or trusting as you could be. Maybe you're a little jaded. Maybe you've experienced things that have shut you down. So clash can happen. Maybe.
I'm curious because I feel like that wasn't necessarily the energy I had at your all's age, like that clash. And
Right.
I'm wondering if part of it, like how much of it is a role that maybe people are in their own kind of echo chambers. Do you know, I mean, it could be also the times that I was growing in, right? The 80s, we had the HIV AIDS crisis, we had the crack epidemic, we had multiple, Rodney King, multiple things that were happening. And we were all attuned in the same space. There was not this ability to flip to 200 channels, right? And it's the same thing for the 60s, right? That's one of the things when, you know, people were getting hosed down, and I'm talking in the States because that's where I'm from, people watched that. And they were all watching the same basic channels at the same time. And so I'm just curious if, is part of it that there's not a unifying, like the murder of George Floyd was a unifying connection, but part of the reason that was so unifying is we're in COVID. And a lot of people were locked down, everybody is watching.
True.
So
Yes.
is that a piece of it?
When I was on break, I had gone up island to visit my auntie Ruby, and we were having lunch, and we were talking about what the times that we're in.
Yeah.
And I'd asked her, like, is this normal? Does this feel normal to you? And she was so affirming. She was like, we're not in normal times. These are not normal times. And I think you're absolutely right. People were able to lock in on these specific things because we didn't have access to, I can scroll and see someone say, get ready with me. The next one is a refugee ship about that. The next one is okay, let's go to work together. The next one is a shootout happens and whatever. It's like
just
this.
that.
How am I supposed to regulate? How am I supposed to plan? How am I supposed to collaborate? But my nervous system is literally shook.
24/7. Like you're on 24/7. I mean, I'm old enough where there was time when TV signed off. Like you turn on TV, you're like, damn.
TV's over.
TV's over for
You
the
imagine?
night.
I'm dead. I almost wonder with that, like, that shock value of like joy, sadness, which is maybe why we gravitate to these trauma things.
Yeah, it's a yo-yo.
You know, where it's like going back and forth, where it's like there's just like this constant anxiety that is felt, whether it's like on a cellular level, that like joy sometimes kind of feels far, but like pain can be felt, which is why we show up to these things when like something shocking does happen, or when something like that like we feel, that I almost wonder that like these opportunities of joy, like when kind of going back to like the grant space and like to create these things, you have to think so like almost like innovatively, because it's so hard to bring people and like support your friend and to show up and like just kiki and like listen to comedy, I don't know, whatever it may be. But when it comes to like take it to the streets, someone just, we're all there.
So I'm going to pick up on that, because I'm wondering if part of being there, the trauma brings people, but there also is this, it's feeding this desire to know that I'm not the only one. To be able to want that connection that maybe I'm not getting online. Because people could have shown their anger online, but they chose to physically show up. And to me, there's some sort of gap that's filling, right? So how do we make, when we think of joy, how do we make people feel that need to understand that when we come together, that's filling your cup? And we saw that because we sold out that movie. In less, and that was just joy. People were like, I just want to be with people. And we see that with certain holidays and stuff like that, that people do come together and want that as well. So I'm just wondering, I feel like people want to come together, but it's almost like they need an excuse to do it. Whereas back in the day,
reason,
we could just throw up some music and let's just dance.
I almost wonder if there's like the infrastructure to do that though, because I'm like during the day, like Monday to Friday, what time do you have? You got work to do, you got kids, you got right, what time do I have? And then depending on how old you are, like are you going out because you're looking for joy or looking for community, or you're using substance, like who knows, right? So you're gravitating towards this as an out maybe, or are you looking to come into something? And I think there's just that, like, what is the infrastructure of our day-to-day that allows for us to be in these spaces to seek that joy genuinely?
And that is interesting because they're looking at, for example, 4-day work weeks. That has been happening in different places world, and the evidence is clear of how much that's helpful to people. I mean, for me, I'm praying for you all that that's what your life is going to look like, because on a Friday we work Monday, and then by the time you're done Friday evening, that doesn't even count. And then Saturday, and then Sunday you're preparing for Monday. Like, there's nothing happening there. And so I am wondering if your generation, they talk a lot about work-life balance, right? Like making that kind of stuff happen, if that would lend itself more to what you're talking about.
I was in a informational session about a master's program, and they were talking about the workload on top of the workload. And the way they were just casually discussing, like, you know, some students who were quite successful made time for this on the weekends. You know, you might see, you know, 10 to 15 clients supervised, and then on top of that, I'm sitting there, nobody else is, everyone's just sitting there like, I'm like,
hey, yo.
I'm like, okay, and is it necessary? I don't know.
You won't be seeing your family for 2 years. Just tell them bye. Tell them you'll see them in 2025. You know, and just be okay with that.
But I do agree, like the workflow and not having the schedule or the infrastructure to be able to participate in community, that does something to people. That isolates people.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're in places where you might not see yourself reflected everywhere. I know with youth it can be very difficult, especially in the school space. I remember it was very difficult to even organize clubs in school. I think there was one of our earlier episodes I had asked about, you know, can we celebrate Black History Month? And they were like, there's not enough of you. And so it's very, very hard to create community to begin with. And so when you get into the space of community organizing and you're trying to collaborate with people are burnt out and you don't even know where to look.
Tired.
Yeah,
tired.
People are tired.
And I get why you're tired.
I do too. And that's also not built into the infrastructure of how we're supposed to even just get some relief. Because we all know at the end of the day, there's a handful of people, honestly, who are really doing something. Amazing and it's things. Exhausting though. And it's not sustainable.
No.
That's the thing. It's not sustainable. So how are we going to shift that?
Well, I think it's, you know, if you're a creator, put your hand up. If you're skilled in something, put your hand up. If you have capacity to help, put your hand up. Reach out. Because people are doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Youth
They really
are doing
are.
amazing things.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
And I almost think like for y'all watching, if you know of any grant writers, of any
Yes.
people doing organizing, people willing to educate others,
If you're one of those people.
if you're one of those people, like put it in anywhere you get this,
Yeah.
hit
Yeah.
us up, let us know so that we
Yeah.
can maybe create something so that people know where to go.
Exactly.
Like having to go on my Instagram being like, hey, where can I, like, luckily I can have those connects.
Yep.
But like, if you are that person, reach out. Like, let's
Yeah.
do that. Let's build that community.
So
Absolutely.
with that, did you want to close this out for the? I got the
The helicopter.
I got the helicopter.
I just think you closed us out brilliantly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just repeat what Pam said. If you are somebody who is able to help in any way around the places that you have passion, whether it be with our youth, for example, and you're able to help write a grant, if you know people who are able to do that, organize effectively. You have a home where you're wanting to do something that's a fundraiser for community. Please hit us up on all the different ways that you can, and we will make sure, that's our commitment, we will make sure that we put together something that's going to be able to impact people not only here in our space, but on the island, and heck, I'm going to go and say all the way to BC. Please become a part of our fam that way. And so from our family to yours, we're so appreciative that you were here today, and know we can make joy and a more joyous space for all of us. And we hope you please help us do that. Until next time, take care.